So, this is much like my incident with the ghost of the Civil War nurse. Isn't going to be grand epic. It isn't going to be I saw the ghost type of thing. I honestly wish it was, as those things make for better retellings and they are harder to dispute. Anyway, for a bit of backstory, I live in a small southern city with history dating back to the Civil War. The apartment building I call home and have called home for almost 4 years now was built in 1936 to be apartments instead of existing as a house, first only, to then be converted into apartments. The walls and floors in this place are tremendously paper thin, as I can hear my downstairs neighbor's TV and my downstairs neighbor if she is talking too loud or loud enough. There are squirrels in the wall that I can hear scribbling time to time, and I can hear every time the front door opens and shuts, generally because people slam it. I say all that to say, yes, I know there is rational, logical explanations for all sort of things. I'm sure there is logical explanation for heavy footsteps I sometimes hear in my downstairs neighbor's apartment, which sounded like she puts on her heaviest pair of hiking boots, which I would be surprised if she owns, and paces, doing her best to stomp heavily in every step. I'm sure there is an explanation for knocking I'll hear sometimes on the bathroom wall, which sounds very much like my other neighbor is rapping his knuckles against his side of the wall. I am even sure there is a logical explanation for the shadow of the arm I'm sure I saw in my dark kitchen once and only once back in 2020, staring at it as I was from the living room. I'm sure there is a logical explanation for any and all little creepy things that have happened while I have lived here. But I can find no explanation for this next part. This was about a week ago. I was about to go to sleep, sitting on the couch. I sleep on my couch because the living room is the only room I can somewhat climate control, be it through the heaters or fans, and playing some solitaire to sort of relax. It was a particularly noisy evening that night. The train was whistling and groaning as it made its way down the tracks. The squirrels were scrabbling in the walls, and I could hear one of the neighbors moving around. In truth, I was a little unnerved by all the noises, and then in the midst of everything else, I hear it. Oh, it was a small voice, toneless, either a woman or young woman or child. It wasn't muffled. It didn't sounded like it was coming from a TV from one of my neighbors. It sounded like it was coming from the kitchen or my bedroom. I stopped. I paralyzed, listening and hear nothing else. Ever since then, I've heard nothing else and have no explanation for it. There is no grand ghost story attached to this place. The only thing that comes close being a half remembered story from the old landlord about some little girl going missing here at some point. Even he hadn't heard about himself had only heard about it from a woman doing research for a ghost walk. It could mean nothing, and I probably won't ever hear anything else, just like the Civil War nurse at my college. But I know what I heard. I know what it wasn't, even if I don't know what it was. That's what counts, right? Continuing to my previous story. So, a few weeks ago, I posted about hearing a young girl tonelessly utter uh oh in my apartment, coming from the hallway behind me. In my next post, I detailed everything strange I'd seen or heard from the shadow of a woman's arm I would seen in the doorway from my room. So here's another story. I have grown more and more uncomfortable sleeping in my bedroom for one reason or another. I have gone being able to sleep rather soundly through the night to waking up after only a few hours and being wholly unable to get back to the sleep. I started having those dreams where you cannot talk right, like no matter how much you try, you can't ever get the words out. I have had these time to time, but it was becoming every time I went back to sleep. More and more, while I slept there, I started hearing what I assumed to be a squirrel in the wall between my bedroom and living room, even during the day. But only while I was sleeping in that bed, and only during the day. Now, squirrels in my wall are not that unusual, but normally I have heard them in the outside walls in the middle of the apartment. One day in particular stands out where I was taking a nap in the middle of the day. I was nearly asleep, drifting in the state between wakefulness and sleep, when I heard it, a voice coming from the room. Psst. It was like someone is calling me. Now, I am no stranger to hallucinating voices or sounds, scraps of dreams, as I am about to go to sleep, and after hurriedly looking around room spooked, I closed my eyes and started falling back to sleep. I get jolted awake a few moments later by the same voice. Psst. Deciding sleep was for the weak, I got up shakily and left my bedroom behind. Over the few next weeks, sleeping in my bedroom became more and more difficult. Once, while laying there, I began to hear thumping coming from somewhere and another whisper in my ear. I woke up another time and I thought I saw a figure standing by my bed. Though I have to wear glasses and without them I'm pretty blind. I've got an old radio that I brought from my parents' house and use as a nightstand. I might have just half asleep and pretty blind mistook the radio for a person, though, and doesn't quite explain it, as the radio is not the same height as the person. I've got my great granddad's suit butler, a wooden thing where somebody might hang a suit, sitting by my bed, pushed up against the corner and out of the way after I tripped over it. Moved it to a different room in the house and tripped over it again. I doubt it's the source of any haunting, as I have had it since mid 2022, and the weird stuff's been happening since before that. More than once, I've woken up groggily, rolling over, seeing it, and being convinced it's a mirror. There is a hole in the middle of that thing that could be mistaken for the mirror if you did not know what you were looking at. So for about a week now, I have been sleeping in my living room on an old broken down couch to see if I sleep any better. Now, for years, ever since I moved on, I'll occasionally feel a gust of cold air against the back of my neck, something I have always attributed to the ceiling fan or one of the other fans in the room. Just a few minutes ago, while standing in the bathroom, I felt a similar gust of cold air against my knees. Now, there is a standing fan in the hallway, but it was positioned just on the other side of the bathroom door and was pointed down the hallway, nowhere near the bathroom. It was after the incident that I began to contemplate posting an update. As I was sitting here listening to a video and having basically convinced myself that I probably had not had oh, enough happen to justify posting an update, I heard it, the sound of something falling over, crackling, chipping like glass, being pushed off, something. I got up after several minutes and did a loop of my apartment and haven't found anything yet that might have caused it. I'm pretty certain my apartment is haunted.